every moment tests you. Every action defines you. This is the prestigious initiative where mindset becomes muscle and character becomes legacy. I'm Chris Bean, martial artist, coach, and relentless believer in growth. If you're here to sharpen your edge, lead with integrity, and build a life that echoes beyond your years, you're home. You can find the podcast on social media at Prestigious Pod. You can find me at Chris Bean Official, and the email for the podcast is prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Today's guest is Matthias, the creator of Forever Notes, a framework for organizing thoughts, knowledge, and notes that grows with you. It's all built within Apple Notes. Matthias has spent time solving problems that many of us face. Tools that, we need tools that promise clarity. We have those, but really what they're delivering is chaos. Through his system, it's simple, it's scalable, and it's durable. And really, it's changing how people work with knowledge, and they're doing all that without buying any new software. So today we're going to explore how to build a note within the system that doesn't collapse under its own weight, how to capture fast, link wisely, and avoid forgetting whatever notes that you write down. We're also going to revisit the things that matters within this system as well. So if you think your digital organization could be sharper, stay tuned because today's episode is going to be for you. Matthias, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So why do you think today people would want to listen to our conversation?
Well, possibly to learn how constraining a system, or generally constrained, sometimes can lead to better outcomes, or more sustainable outcomes. Let's say it this way.
Okay. What are some of the frustrations that you went through on your path to creating Forever Notes? You have all of those other notes that are out there, Notion, Obsidian, pen and paper, and notebook. We're in this digital age. Everybody's using the digital tools. I'm assuming you have an Apple, you're an Apple guy, you're in Apple Notes. What are some of the frustrations that you went down in order for you to build this Forever Note system?
I think throughout my life and my career, I've always tried to adapt to, the situation that I'm in, the needs that my work and my life have, and I try to find solutions to solve, specific problems. And some of these problems were, of course, scattered notes. Having one system for this client, having another system for my personal work. Maybe, in my work, I wear a lot of hats, different hats. I've got different businesses, and I have to look through different lenses at specific problems. And with these different hats came different systems. And some of the problems that I've had in in organizing my life led to a chaotic situation, where I'm using one software for that specific problem or that specific client, and another software for where I'm collecting my ideas, and another one which is easier to use on my mobile, And of course, at some point, I've also ran into the question, oh my God, maybe I should be a paper person. I should write it down with pen and paper. And so, of course, the bullet journal came, across the horizon, and I had to try that for a while. So I think I dipped my toes into different softwares, including Notion, including the bullet journal, and many, many others, just to find out that maybe all these softwares with all their features is not what I should be looking for. I should not be researching software for features, but I should actually be trying to understand my own needs first, and then look at what's out there and what can possibly solve these the problems that I'm having. And so I think this is what I've done for many years, with better or worse results. And Forever Notes sort of came along um, almost accidentally. It was nothing I was actively working on, or never had the idea of publishing it at all. This was a system that I developed over, I mean, I think the course of about a year and a half, um, for myself and for solving um, the problem of storing information in one place and knowing, being feeling the security of knowing where that information is. I think this is sort of my story in a nutshell.
Well, and you talked about okay, so let me ask this question first. What do you do for work? So you kind of touched on, like, you have multiple different avenues that you do. What do you do?
So my main job is originally a graphic designer. I work in advertising, so I've been an art director and a creative director, and I still do the majority of my work is still art direction and creative direction. I'm working with private clients and also with agencies, and so my main work is creative work. But I do have a side business, which I'm not involved in the day-to-day business, but it's a vegan cake production. So totally different world, a totally different business, and this is where I'm also, in my main job, I'm a freelance designer. So you wear a lot of hats throughout the day and throughout your week, it helps to be organized, that it helps to have a system that you can rely on.
Okay, so the reason I ask that is because you like, on the average person, if you just have your home life and you have your business life and you keep those things kind of separate, okay, that might work for some people. But if you have a couple different businesses that you're in or working in, or you're freelancing, then you're working with lots of different people, trying to remember, okay, what notebook was that in? What app did I have that in? Like, trying to keep all of that straight is certainly a challenge. And so through the Forever Note system, you were able to simplify and consolidate all of that into one area. You have your tags. I'm assuming you have a collection for each different client that you're working with in your freelance business. You probably have a hub for the cake business. You probably have like I'm getting ahead of myself because the listeners maybe don't know exactly what I'm talking about. But having those things secluded enough where they're separate, but also maintained under one house, I'm sure is immensely helpful for you trying to navigate and remember and keeping track of the tasks that you have, the notes that you have for each of those different projects that's going on all the time.
Yes. I do have to clarify. So I'm not using Apple Notes for all aspects of my life. So Apple Notes for me is a personal knowledge management system. And so for example, I don't share a lot of the content that is in Apple Notes, any notes with colleagues or anything. So it's a system that works for my personal knowledge. That includes, for example, my project planning happens in Apple Notes. A lot of long-term resources or reference materials are in Apple Notes, and there is overlap between work and personal life. But for example, I do use for the cake business, it's a whole different suite of software suite. So I'm not using Apple Notes for that. I'm using only Apple Notes when it comes to my ideation or planning for that business. But then, when it comes to the business itself, it runs on a totally different system. Just to be sure. Clear, because I think to run a whole business in Apple Notes can be challenging. Yeah, especially when you run multiple notes or multiple businesses.
Well, because that makes sense, because you probably have something like a CRM, a customer resource management system that has all of the clients in there. You have the they're linked within their notes within themselves. You have their phone number, email, and all of that stuff on, and you probably have an opportunity to even have tasks depending on what CRM you use and within there as well. So the Apple Notes, the Forever Notes is really your personal knowledge management system. Okay, yeah. Now, for the, and I touched on this a little bit, but for the listeners that maybe are not necessarily aware, can you give me just a brief overview of the core components of the system? So the home, the tags, the collections, the hubs, and then the journal, and then maybe how a little bit of how those things connect together.
Sure. The idea is that we're with the Forever Notes framework, you sort of put an extra layer of organization on top of existing Apple Notes features. So nothing is sort of dramatically new in actually none of them. I'm using the features that Apple Notes offers. But what I felt like what I needed was sort of one central node that every time I go to Apple Notes, this is where I start from. Instead of having usually when you open Apple Notes, I don't know if you're an Apple Notes user or not, but when you open Apple Notes, you have a list of notes, and this is the main interface. It's the list of notes. It's dozens, hundreds, thousands. I'm having over 3,000 notes in my system, and that obviously can create a huge overwhelm. So for me, the first step was, and this happened pretty quickly after Apple released the update with the ability to link notes. So linking notes, like one note to another note. And that for me was like, it was a huge change, or an eye opener. How to use Apple Notes more effectively was to have one note that is the center of my whole system. And I call it the home node. And on this home node, you put links to the notes that you use most frequently. So if, for example, if you have, a project node on a specific project, you would probably, and it's an active project, you would link that project onto the home node. I also have, for example, just copy paste resources. I've got a credit card number on there. I've got my insurance number on there, stuff that I use very frequently. And instead of going, to the PDF that contains that number, or, like having to write it manually, I go to my home node, copy it, paste it somewhere else. So this is the first, and this is usually what I suggest to new users of the framework, to start with that and don't even do anything else. Just start with that one node, because for a lot of people, this already makes a huge difference. And just to have that, and I'm opening it with a shortcut, an Apple shortcut, or a Siri shortcut, either from the dock on my Mac, or I have it on the lock screen on my phone. And with one click, you're already inside of a sort of on the first layer of your knowledge, to say it like that. And that page changes. So, once a project is done, once, certain information is not, you don't need to access it on a daily basis or maybe on a weekly basis, I remove it. The note stays in the system, but it's not on the home node anymore. So I just, it's a living document, a living note that updates as you go along. And so that's the first component, the home node. Then we have tags and collections, and tags are just like in Apple Notes, is basically sort of a mini framework of how to use tags in the Forever Notes framework. And I separated them into 4 different categories. But the main idea here is that we're trying to create sort of a structure of notes. And I think that the simplest way to look at it in the beginning is that if you start with Apple Notes, every node has the same layer of hierarchy, let's say it this way. And through tags, you can give context to a note. Yeah, you can, for example, a hashtag project. All of a sudden, the note is not just a note, but it's a specific project note. Or hashtag doc or document. It becomes a document note. And I think one of my favorite document or tags in the system is person, because I'm terrible at remembering, or I'm terrible at meeting new people and remembering anything about them. And so for me, this was one of the main tags in the beginning. And so we basically give a tag to each new note. This way, there's already some context for that node when you create it. And the second layer would be, or the second step on that would be to create a collection out of them. So for nodes that you use, again, that you want to access frequently, for example, if you every day want to check, your active projects. So this is the example I give on the website and also in the tutorials. You create a collection, a project collection, and this way, with maximum 2 clicks, you can access a list of your active project nodes. And they're sort of in this smart folder. So we create them through the smart folder and a specific tag. And we can be very specific. So we can, for example, show only project nodes that are active or in progress at the moment. And you can create sort of a collections based on the system that works for you. Some people need a project collection. Other people need a people collection. Somebody else might need a recipe collection or anything else. That's the second one.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause you there. As a lot of information, I know the
yes.
home. So the home. The beautiful thing about this is that really becomes the user's dashboard. They can go there, and the other nice thing about that is you get to design your own and this whole system. You give people the framework and kind of the ability to change and modify it how they see fit and what works best for them, which is so wonderful. I think that probably there's a number of things really that has helped this grow. I think that really is the big thing, because then you don't feel like you have to conform to any sort of rigid framework, because you give the framework and here's some ideas about it. This is how I use it. And what a wonderful way. Now, okay, so the home is where all of the links are. So that's the database, or the database would be Notion terms. That's the page that
dashboard.
has the dashboard that has all of the links in there, that gets the easy things. And you've done a few things there that has really made that even more beneficial, because you have it where it's linked really easy. A Apple or a Siri launch action from the dashboard or from the dock on your Mac, or the home screen on your phone. You're either going to be at your computer or you're going to have your phone somewhere around you. So to have that, boom, on the home screen or on the lock screen, pow, you can open it right in there. So that reduces the friction of people getting into the system. That makes it easier for people to use, because again, it's all about reducing that friction. The next thing is, all of this is minimal clicks. So we've all used, I'm sure you've used apps before. You got to click this and you got to click that and you got to click this and you got to click over here, drag this over. Now you can do the thing that you want to do. Oh my gosh, that's too much. So to minimize that to such a measure where you can, on the lock screen, pow, all right, I'm on my notes, boom, this is where I want to go. And then you can you can get to the hubs or the collections or whatever you have that you want to go to from there. And then the other thing is, you have, because of Apple growing and expanding their app, their products, you have kind of been able to turn this into something even more, because that's where the links came in. That's where the hashtags came in. So you have the tags. Okay, so we'll get to hubs and the next parts there in a second. Have you had any troubles? I know when iOS 26 came out, there was some issues with, I think, the home hub, right?
There is an issue with images in Notes. So that was, I think, a video I published in September or something, probably like right after the new OSs came out. So I'm using this is a visual. It's an aesthetic thing. So I'm using basically I've prepared some banners that can be used as headers in specific notes, especially the home node and also some of the hub nodes. And there's an issue with if you have an image on the top of the node, the name of the image will be shown as the title of the node. But I think it's a quick fix. You just have to sort of change the order or get rid of the image. That's also an option. But I'm not sure whether this is an intentional thing by Apple. Who knows what they're planning for the future? You never know. At the moment, I think it's just a small hiccup issue. We'll see.
And I'm sure as they continue to upgrade or update or change or modify or add new things, the beautiful thing about the Forever Note system is all of those things you have that adaptability built into the framework of your system. So as they grow, as they change or modify things, you can adjust on the fly or add new features into the system.
Yes, exactly. As I mentioned, I'm using the features that are built in, and I think tags or smart folders or linking to nodes. These are features that Apple would not get rid of. These are basic Note app features nowadays. If at all, they're going to build on top, and I think the framework is open enough and not too rigid, in order to have any issues in the future. Yeah.
All right. So we're going through the system. You have home, you have tags, we have collections. What about hubs and journal? Can you bring the listeners in and share that with them?
Sure. So hubs is probably the component of the framework that most people struggle with, especially in the beginning. The idea here is that in a way it functions also like a collection. So it's a collection of different of links to different nodes. But it's a collection of nodes that have different tags associated with them. So a collection, as we mentioned before, for example, a project collection contains only nodes that have the hashtag project. And a hub acts more like an overview node of a very specific topic. So this can be an area of your life. This can be, I'm mentioning the example of a health hub or a finance hub. It can be a work hub or a personal hub or a hobby hub. And this is where you collect or where you link nodes to that hub node that are related to the specific topic. And they don't have to have, this can be, so for example, if we're talking about a health hub, you might link nodes that are all tagged with or that are related to health, obviously, but they can be different. It can be your insurance papers that are, usually associated with your finances. But it can also, contain links to your lab results, that are more on the health side. Or it can be your doctor's contact information, So basically on hub pages, I usually tell people also to start with fewer hubs and not go wild, because of course with any new system, people get excited, and this is including me. I'm the same way. They get excited and want to, organize their life immediately in all aspects. So I would start with a handful of hubs that are really the most important ones, because the difference to collections is that collections sort of automatically house all your project nodes, for example, because the moment you tag a node with the hashtag with the tag project, it's automatically in the collection. Whereas hubs is a manual collection, so it's manually curated, And so you go in there. It basically is the place where, when maybe on your quarterly, review, or on your annual review, or in the moments when you think about your health on a big scale, on a high level, this is where you go into that node, and it gives you just the overview of that area or that topic in your life. And so this is it's very personal again. It's more on a broader horizon than on a very specific uh, project collection or ideas collection. Yeah, so it goes broad. So this is hubs, and then the last one, excuse me, the last one is journal, and this is the one that people either love or don't find useful. Um, I find it very useful. To me, it's one of the most useful aspects of the system. It basically is a collection of notes that have daily notes, monthly notes, quarterly notes, and an annual note or a yearly note. And all of these notes are linked up. This has to be done manually. So this is a problem of Apple Notes, that this cannot be automated. So this linking is manual, but usually people can do this within an hour. I would say. I think if you're optimistic, it's about an hour to do this job in the beginning when you set up the system. But the journal component is sort of it's the time aspect of the system. Yeah, and I use it to do short form journaling on a daily basis. But I also, create highlights of my previous month in the monthly notes. I do planning for the next month, or again on these different horizons. You basically get a look at previous time frames, and the ability to work on your plans for the future. I think maybe this is the short answer to that.
And so really the journal is where all of your daily things go. And as you're doing the daily things, you can then link them to the hub or to the collection, or if that note is so important, you need to have it on the home, you can have it on the home. And maybe you probably have an example or like a way to get to your dailies from the home anyways.
The same way, I have a shortcut set up to my current daily note on my lock screen, and also on my in my dock. So within one click, I'm on my daily note, and this is basically where my daily planning happens. This is where, when I create a new note, I actually create it on that daily note. So I can go back in time and have context to that note. For example, if I have an event, or I meet a new person, I actually link the person to that event while creating a new note for that person. And this, I think, I don't know if somebody mentioned this to me, that it sounds a little creepy to make notes on people when you meet them. But to me, this is it's a business practice all over the world. I think like when you meet a lot of people, and you do want, maybe you don't meet them again, within a couple of days or a week, but you want to remember them in the future and have a reference to what you talked about, or what was interesting about this person, what was something that you want to remember. Just the fact that you write it down, you create that note, and you spend a little time thinking back on this event, to me, that already helps. Remembering it a little better, and having that, knowing that I can always go back the next time I see them, going back to that note, and sort of refreshing my memory.
Well, and the nice thing about that is we want to have, like, everybody is all about having a good first impression. But if you fumble the first impression, it's not the end of that relationship. You just have to rebuild that or make that better as you continue to interact with that person. But on top of that, if you happen to really do a good first impression, then you go and meet that person again, and you meet tons of people. you're going to forget all of those things that you had that bond with on the first time. I mean, maybe you can remember those things if you're that type of person, but oftentimes not everybody is that type of person.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not that type of person for sure. This was one of the main things. I think, I mean, one of the first aspects of, I think my first collection was a people collection, because I am terribly bad at I get nervous when I meet a new person. I'm all in my head. I'm trying to be nice and friendly, and I walk out of the meeting and I don't remember a thing. I don't remember their name. I don't remember anything. But just by the practice of creating these notes, it helps me a lot. It helped me a lot. So.
Well, and the other thing that does too. So what I'm sensing probably is going on is because you're nervous when you're meeting people. You're in kind of a flight or fight mode as you're meeting these people, and then you get done. You're like, oh my gosh, that actually I think went good. I don't know. I don't remember, because I was all trying to make it happen. It was going good.
Exactly.
But then you go back and so I think what you've built into your own system there is, you, as you're meeting people, you are cataloging things that you want to be able to jot down to remember, so that you can call attention to the next time you meet that person. I think that switches your mindset from being in that nervous fight or flight mode to, okay, this went good. Okay, I'm gonna catalog this. This was good. Okay. Oh wow, they're interested in this. And then you have that opportunity to think about those things, as opposed to thinking about being nervous. And then after you have those things in your mind, then you can go and put those down into your system, and then you have those.
Absolutely. Just by the fact that I know that I have a trustworthy system, it already eases me, into the situation. And then while I'm in the situation, it surely makes it easier. And then afterwards, usually at least for me, when I remember one thing after the conversation, I remember a whole lot more, even if I was nervous in that moment. But yeah, the system is not just that note. And I think part of my philosophy for that system is that because it's a very manual system. It's not, there's a very few automations in there. I'm using shortcuts to make it more accessible, but the linking is manual. Apple Notes doesn't have a backlinking linking feature. Unlike Notion, where you can create a template for that collection, and everything is linked up with backlinks and so on. In Apple Notes, that's just not possible. But I started to embrace the fact that this is manual work. I enjoy that it actually takes a little bit more time to do, because it forces me to be more intentional about what I'm doing and what I'm linking, what I'm not linking as well. Sometimes I say, like, it's okay if I don't backlink this to the original node or something. And in the example of the person node, it's the same thing. Just the fact that I'm doing this manually, it grounds me. It helps me to just get a bit more clarity on the whole situation. Yeah.
Well, I think that little bit of friction that forces you to be intentional and purposeful and mindful about what you're doing and how you're doing it, that helps to avoid the clutter that would happen otherwise. And I know something that you talk about is having the note graveyards. And can you talk a little bit about the note graveyards and what your system does in order to foster that away and to have something that is reoccurring, that you can refresh and that you have there, that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle?
Right. So I think when I talked, I think originally, I don't remember exactly in which video I'm mentioning this first, but obviously the idea of a node graveyard is that you write down everything, you catalog everything, you document everything, and you forget about it. You just don't remember that you wrote it down, and of course this even my system cannot protect you from it if you don't pay attention to it. What the Forever Notes framework does help you to do is be intentional from the beginning on. So my suggestion is always when you create a new node, give it at least one tag in the beginning. So we don't actually create notes that just end up at the bottom of your notes list in Apple Notes, but they at least are tagged with a tag. So it's one, because a lot of times what happens, what happened to me again, tell me if you had a similar experience. I know some of the users have had this, that you remember you wrote it down, and you remember that you've written it down somewhere, but you cannot remember the title. You cannot remember what exactly the information was that you wrote down.
And
you have sort of this vague idea.
And most of the time, you can even remember where at on the page you wrote it down at, but you don't know where that note is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this abstract sort of idea of knowledge, that it's somehow, your brain just wasn't able to, tag or link or whatever. And sometimes keywords can help. Sometimes a tag can help. And it's good if you have options to sort of, approach it from different. I think that Apple Note search usually is very, very good. And in many cases, it makes sense to just type in the search bar, or even in Spotlight now and search for a specific note. But sometimes you need an overview of your notes, and that's where tags can help. And so I always suggest having at least one tag in a note, and maybe up to 3 as a maximum. It's not necessary to tag your note with keywords in a traditional keyword way. So the moment a word is being used in your note, it is searchable. So you don't have to create another tag for it. But now I lost my train of thought. But I think I was talking about the notes graveyard. So I think this is one way of trying to avoid that. That you don't have notes that are somehow like that never show up again in your system, either by clicking on a tag and seeing all of those notes, or showing up on a hub note in a specific way. So this is how I look at it. Again, it really is the practice of tagging every note, and not just writing notes and forgetting about them.
Do you ever have a process where you go back and look at tags that maybe aren't necessarily linked to a collection or a hub, and then review that, or even do like a yearly or quarterly review of the system to kind of get an idea of where you're at, and what, if you need to further link things, or if you need to archive things in the system?
Absolutely. So I don't do archiving. Just a little note on that. The Forever Notes framework is a one folder system. All notes live in the default notes folder in Apple Notes, and this is very scary. I know that Bill is he's very uncomfortable with this. He mentioned that, and some people are. But I think that once you let go of the idea of having to manually organize it into folders, and that means order or systematic approach to notes, once you let that go and embrace tags, you will never want to drag another note into a manual folder, or like into an actual folder, or a subfolder, or a sub-subfolder, and then never look at that folder again. And so all the notes in the Forever Note system live in one folder, and that eliminates the idea of archiving, because a note is just there. When you search for it, it's there. When you've tagged it, it's there. When you linked it on a hub note or on your home note, it's there. The only time when you could possibly talk about archiving is on your hub notes or on your home note, is when you sort of get rid of that link. When you get rid of that, when you just delete the link to your current project once it's finished, and you just don't need access to it on a daily basis. Then you sort of just delete the link, but the note stays where it is. No extra archive folder needed, no extra archive tag needed. It's just there where it was before. So that's about archiving. And otherwise, yes. So I do, and this is totally based on David Allen's GTD system. I do weekly reviews, monthly reviews, quarterly reviews, and yearly reviews. I mean, my weekly reviews are usually the ones that take pretty long, because I'm going through everything. I'm going through all my projects, all the tasks, and all the plans for the next week, and so on. So they tend to take about an hour, or sometimes even two. The monthly reviews are a little bit shorter, because usually it's just looking at the plan of the previous month, or of the current month, and then planning for the next month. To be honest, I'm not a good person. I'm not a great future planner of like, this is exactly what I'm going to do next month, because life always changes everything. Yeah. So my mood changes, my energy levels change, life changes, or my clients' projects change, or something comes in between, and then the whole planning process is sort of done for nothing. So I'm usually keeping it very light on the monthly, and also the quality planning is usually themes. Maybe I want to focus on something specifically that's a little bit more long term, and that I do on the monthly ones. And in the annual ones, I look at systems, and the system, the Forever Note system, is one of the things that I look at. And I check all my hubs. I check all the tags. Usually what happens is that, when I go through and delete notes that I really don't need anymore, and they use tags, they get automatically deleted the moment they don't exist anymore, like on a note in Apple Notes. So that's also like, it's not a dramatic process, to be honest.
So the reason everybody is up on, I think, archiving is from Tiago Forte with the method that he has.
Yes.
And I think that even when I listened to him talk about that, I was using Notion at the time. So I'm trying to build a Notion system that kind of works in that kind of framework. The archive to me never quite made sense, because then, like you said, you had to move it somewhere else that has an extra step that's on it. And if it's a note or a resource, like in this para method, why would I archive a resource? I just have it there. I don't necessarily need to access it. Okay, things like a project, okay, that's done. That makes sense. I just don't have that there anymore. But like notes and resources to archive, to me, that never really clicked for me. And maybe it's because maybe I just don't understand his system well enough. But that thought of the archive on those type of things, that's still a resource. I could still use it for other things. So I like that idea of not necessarily needing to go through do that extra step to put things, I'm not using this anymore. Okay, it needs to go to the archive. Well, it might come back up, and maybe I need to have it there still.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think my problem with the idea of archiving was that when you have, for example, projects. I mean, I don't have a project list. I have multiple project lists, because I have specific client projects. I've got personal projects. So I've got multiple lists. And then what am I doing in the archive? I'm duplicating every list. I have a client A project list, and I also have a client A archive list. That to me was like, it seemed too much. And I also at the same time, I cannot just put every project folder, because I think the para method is I mean, it's definitely based on a folder system, whether that's in Mail or in Finder or in Notion or in any kind of database, and so for me, that putting the project, like for example in Notion, I'm pretty sure I built something like this in Notion as well, taking that database item and dragging it into the archive, but then it lost all its context, whether it's this client's project or like all of this. It was too much and overwhelming for me. And whereas now in the tagging system, it's a project that has the tag in progress, and once it's not in progress anymore, that tag gets, I delete the tag in that project, and all of a sudden it disappears from the collection of active projects, and it just sits in that, in that notes list, and can be found anytime I'm looking for, or I'm searching for the tag project. So it's still there. Yeah. So that's sort of my approach. It's just a slightly different approach, with the same result, I think.
Okay, so you talked about searching. For you personally, as you're using the system, where do you first go? What is your first order retrievability? The thing that you use to find a note, if you can't, like, if you know where it is and that's something different, but if you're like, I have it here, but I don't know where to find it, what's your process for that?
So usually, unless I know it's, I'm in my brain, I know if it's on the home note. So that's usually, that's it in 90% of the time when I'm looking for a specific note that is current, is on the home note. So I know where to access that. That's one click and it's there. And then I click on, I have I made some notes for today, and those were linked on my home note as a project over the last couple of weeks, just to collect some thoughts. And it's also linked on my today's note, so that basically within one click from my today's note, or one click from my home note, I can access that note. Yeah, so this is the first one. And then the second one is search. Definitely search. It's either on my Mac, it's usually Spotlight. Unless I'm already in the Notes app, then I use the search field in the Notes app. And on my phone, is my favorite feature. Even on the lock screen, when you scroll down, you can actually access Spotlight search. So you don't have to unlock, you don't have to click on anything. It's just scrolling down, or like swiping down, and you can start typing immediately. And that in many times I can find the note this way.
Okay, so you're talking about our meeting here for today, and that's an interesting kind of way to think about this. Do you have your Forever Notes or Apple Note ecosystem linked or connected to like your calendar? And so the reason I asked that is because, okay, so we had this meeting for today. I'm guessing it's going to be on your calendar. I think Apple has a way that you can connect notes to calendar. If you put that into your calendar, then you would have all of those things there. Is that something that you do?
So no, I don't. I think that linking, so deep links within the Apple ecosystem are still difficult. Apple is getting better at it, to allow clickable links from calendar to notes, or from a reminder to a note. The way you create these is still tricky. I wish, just like many modern softwares, Apple would have a click to copy deep link, because that would make it a lot easier. There are sometimes I have had the so I've played around with it a lot, because of course many people have asked me, what's your reminder system? How do you do task management? And unfortunately, there is just no easy way, at least the way I'm thinking, for me to connect these two. So I don't. Very, very rarely I do use the Apple linking feature, unfortunately. But I think they understand the value of it. I think they're going to hopefully make the integrations easier and simpler, and then I will use it too. Right now, my calendar notes, or my day-to-day calendar notes, live in my Apple Notes journal, on my day notes.
Okay. Now, if the people that are using things like Notion, Obsidian, insert whatever other app that they're using, how might Forever Notes pull them in and establish that Forever Note system for them as a simpler alternative to make it so they can actually get into their notes, do the things they want to do, not forget about things, but also not necessarily maybe leave that other system yet, but use it maybe
Mhm.
as a complementary type of back and forth.
Mhm. Well, I mean, again, I would, maybe start with a specific domain. Maybe it's just personal, personal stuff, personal projects, or personal information, and yeah, keep it simple. Again, I would, I think a lot of people actually, even Notion users, from what I've heard, and when I talk to Evernote users, um, they've used Apple Notes. So a lot of people on in the Mac ecosystem use Apple Notes, and but they use something else as well, and they just don't. They feel like that Apple Notes is just the quickest way to jot down an idea or to jot down information, and so they use it for that. And then maybe they transfer it or it gets lost in there, and so I think this is usually the starting struggle. And so I would suggest to just start with a home note, and think about the notes that they're currently accessing frequently, and start linking those to the home note. And look on my website for the instructions. I have on the YouTube channel. There's a sort of a video for each component, and start with a home note, and get started with that. I would start there, and then see if you can, if Apple Notes makes sense to you, and if the system makes sense to you on that level.
Now, we were talking before we started the show about the community that Forever Notes has, and I think that having a community like the Forever Notes does is a good indication that it means something to the people who are using it. So, as you know, I'm not the community spokesperson, but I want to say thank you for that. Have you had any surprising feedback from the users as they're implementing these systems? And then have there been any continual issues that they've experienced? And if so, how have you or the community helped to bridge the gaps on that? And then the last one is has the community brought any new ideas to the Forever Note system that has been implemented?
Mhm. Okay, let me see if I remember all those questions, because I'm not writing down anything right now. But yeah, so the community has been probably uh, has given me the energy. I mean, this is why I'm still working on this project. Because for me, when I started this, I thought, okay, I'm gonna uh, publish this website documentation, and then I thought, okay, I'll do some videos on YouTube, and that will be it, and it will just live there in for anybody to sort of access. But it's the community, and this. I mean, I've received feedbacks. Sometimes it's just thanks for this. For this framework. It's changed how I used Apple Notes. It changed how I work in general, how I save information in my work, and I mean, the feedback has been amazing, really, really amazing. So I actually have to say a thank you to everyone who's written to me or shared their feedback with me, because that really helped me a lot, and give me energy for this. And there's all types of users. There are users who use only the home node. There are users who use the whole system. There are users who and they're very rigid with the system, and they defend the system. And then there are users who create their own templates with Apple shortcuts in ways that is mind blowing to me. How they look at it. I'm not a coder or a programmer. I'm also not a Siri shortcuts expert. Like all the shortcuts that I built, I had to research and trial and error many times to make them work. And there are many people are very excited and engaged in the forum, and also I've had some sort of personal interviews with some of these people, because I built a course during the summer just to sort of help people to set it up in one afternoon. And before I did that, I wanted to sort of hear from people like, what is it actually that would help them set it up, you know? And in these were usually like 15, 20-minute conversations, but like face to face. And I talked to people all over the world, and it was yeah, it was amazing. I mean, you probably know this. I hope you know this feeling of connecting to people that you would never think about connecting with, and they have the same story like you. You know, they've gone through the same struggles, they've gone through the same softwares, sometimes, and they're creating solutions for their lives and their needs with something that like I sort of created as a side project. So it's been amazing. And there are, I mean, so if you go to the forum, you will see many people have many different questions, and then there's of course also technical aspects, and some of them I can help to solve, some of them I can't solve, because like there's a million different computers, and there's different iPhones and different software versions, and I try my best. And the community is also like it's really it's great helping other people out if there are any issues. One of the issues you mentioned was at the beginning of like in September, when the new OS came out, and people were wondering like what's going on there. But I try to address that if possible. There are shortcuts can be a nightmare sometimes, and like it works for one person flawlessly, and for somebody else they run into an issue. So far, I think the majority of issues, either I or the community members were able to help with. So I think it's a running system that works for most people. Yeah, was that all the questions?
Is there any? Have there been any things that the community has had like on their wish list that have been integrated?
Yes. So we do have on the website, there's sort of a free resources section, and some of these, for example, also the video that I made on the banner, the image banner, that was a suggestion from a user in the forum, and there were also some users who translated the shortcuts in order to like into a specific language, or the newest, I think the newest edition, which I'm still working on, and I'm slightly delayed actually with the publication of it, is weekly notes. This has been I left out weekly notes originally on purpose, but the community, there's definitely a demand for weekly notes in the journal, in the journal component. And so I'm working, we're having a conversation in the forum about it, and I'm also working on the implementation of it. It's tricky, but yeah, we're working on it.
Very good. Hey, Matthias, I want to say thank you. Thank you for showing us and bringing us into this Forever Note system, and for creating it, and not only creating it, but allowing everybody to kind of use it kind of free of charge, which is so wonderful, so wonderful. And today we talked about how that simplicity, the intentionality, and then the maintenance of this Forever system is so helpful in building this system in such a way that brings that information back up to you when it's ready, when you want it to be there. And we don't necessarily have to move things and archive them, because sometimes you want to keep those things. You just move off that in progress type of tag. Okay, it's still there, still lives there. And building this Forever Note system, the home, the tags, the collections, the hubs, the journal, all of that is an effort to move away from the chaos, and sometimes the maybe too easy of adding things everywhere, to simplifying it a little bit, making sure that you're intentional about how you do things. And, hey, as we're wrapping up, I want to know, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you would like to leave the listeners with? And if they would like to learn more about you or the Forever Note system, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I think, like with any new system, don't just blindly adapt it. Think about like what why you're interested in it, and start simple, start with a home note, and then build on top once you get a feel for it, without because we, of course, we tend to dive deep and spend a lot of time setting up systems that we then don't use. So that's why I actually have these different components. You can use each one sort of separately, and you don't have to install the whole system. So that would be my tip, I guess, for new users. You can check out the free documentation on the website, which is myforevernotes.com. Or search for, actually, you can just search for Forever Notes on Google or any other platform. You can search in YouTube for the channel, also for just by the handle is My Forever Notes, and I'm on Threads and Instagram, but not super active on social media. But you can always contact me on the website as well.
Very good. And listeners, if this episode resonated with you, share this with somebody who you know that is drowning in digital clutter. Subscribe and check out our newsletter. Until next time, simplify what you store and think to grow clearer.